All right, we are live.
Cool.
Awesome. Liz, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah. Welcome everybody. And I'm so glad to be facilitating today's Lupus LA's December patient advocacy webinar that I have personally been looking forward to for a very long time. And today's webinar is called Lupus Behind the Scenes: From Love to Lab Results. And I'm Liz Morasso. Like I said, I'm going to be the facilitator and or moderator for today's session. I'm a psychotherapist, and I was diagnosed with lupus in RA when I was 16, and have been involved with Lupus LA since about 2010. So been here for a long time, and just love what they do and love facilitating and moderating things for their organization, because I get to meet such incredible people, as you guys will meet today during our webinar. Um, Today is all about real experiences of living with lupus. So relationships, dating, family dynamics, medical gaslighting, which of course never happens, right? No, definitely does. Advocacy, finding care, and everything in between. And if you've ever walked out of an appointment saying, like, I should have asked more, I wasn't sure what to ask, I wasn't really sure how to navigate this, or kind of smiled through a flare because you don't look sick, right? I put that in quotes. This safe is for you, or this space is for you. It's safe, it's comforting, it's real. So I'm incredibly excited and honored to be able to moderate today. And for our participants, thank you so much for being here and showing up for yourselves, for our community, and for each other. And before we start, I just wanted to have everybody briefly introduce themselves. I mean, we have some real kind of powerhouses today with us, so I'd love to hear more about you and your connection with lupus. Victoria, do you want to start?
Gladly. So my name is Victoria Gibbs. I live in New York City, and I was diagnosed with lupus in June of 2016. It has been quite a journey, and ever since my diagnosis, I've been using my voice and my words to authentically share my experiences, no matter how good or bad they are. And in doing so, I've actually been able to make a lot of connections through social media as far as people going through the same thing and highlighting that their stories really resonate with mine and that I've inspired them to keep going. I live a very, hectic life here in New York City. It never stops. And I really learned over the years to find time to kind of slow down, take care of myself, advocate for myself. It wasn't always that way. And I used my platform to share my experiences. So a couple of years ago, I had heart surgery. I shared very authentically on my social media what was happening, and I'm getting ready to do a hip replacement caused from steroids that I took for so long. And so I look at these moments as opportunities for me to share my story, and I find it to be very empowering, and it makes me feel good on all fronts. So very grateful to be here tonight.
I love that. And plug for Victoria's yoga classes in New York. I have personally taken them, and they felt so good for my body. So thank you, Victoria. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Cool. Sharon?
Yes, hi, my name is Sharon. I'm 25 years old. I live in Orange County, California. I am a content creator on TikTok, and I'm also training to be a future healthcare provider. I was diagnosed with lupus when I was 15, so roughly 10 years ago, and it absolutely changed my life. I had two hip replacements, I had knee surgery, and everything in between. So it's been quite a journey. I live a combination of a holistic lifestyle while adhering to Western medicine. So I found a great balance of both, and I love to share that just in my journey and hopefully to my future patients as well as a future healthcare provider.
I love that, Sharon. We love to see people, that look like us and have experienced, things that we have in the medical profession. I know for patients, as a healthcare provider, the patients I've worked with, I think they really feel like this unique sense of empathy when they have a physician or healthcare provider that knows what they're going through on a much deeper level.
Yeah, and
It's
that's like
awesome.
my whole purpose of like even going into medicine is to bridge that gap between the understanding of a provider from a patient.
I
So
love
I'm
that.
just very grateful to be in the position that I am.
Love it. We need you. Cambria, want to tell us a little bit about you?
Hi, I'm Cambria Francesca. I am a plus size model and actress, and I work to bring diversity to the fashion industry and film industry. I really try and make sure that there are spaces for disabled people, there are spaces for people with body diversity, and I really try and make sure that we just really focus on the fact that people of all types should be accepted and that there should be a place for us. And yeah, that's my goal in life.
I love that. And you guys, if you're not already following Cambria, I love to see her posts on social media. Again, like being able to see other people with lupus living such dynamic lives. And I love your presence and you do such a great job of
Thank you.
conveying.
We're also live on my TikTok. So if anyone wants to go to the
Nice.
TikTok as well, broadcasting it there.
I love that. Cool. Lorena, tell us about you.
I'm so happy to be here and in this terrific company. My name is Lorena Gordon. I was born and raised in New York. I was diagnosed with lupus at 13, and I didn't see myself represented when I was growing up. I always had a passion for filmmaking and basketball. Those are like my two dreams growing up. Basketball didn't pan out. So I was like, okay, with filmmaking, I want to make sure that I'm telling stories that I wish I had growing up. And I always felt like, representation was needed on all fronts, like Cambria mentioned. So I make it my mission to tell stories, again, that I wish I had growing up and representing all, you know, uh, mostly I wish I had stories about like lupus or other, invisible illnesses because I feel like a lot of people kind of forget that that's a thing, unless you look like that you're sick. And I feel very passionate about it. So I make it my mission in the stories that I tell and to be an advocate because representation is so key to, how people get their information that I make it my mission to do it in the work that I do because living with lupus has taught me so much and I want to give back and again, be um, a sense of hope for other, patients that are just being diagnosed with lupus or recently diagnosed just to see them see this panel and see what we've been able to accomplish. I hope gives them, hope.
I love that. And Loretta, you were talking about film first and how, you were really trying your best to make sure that people can, again, like see their experiences, see themselves in some way. And I think this really parallels that goal, like to being on today's panel. So thank you so much. That kind of goes into one of the first questions that I was going to ask, which is like, what part of you guys' lupus journey feels most important for people to know today? And Lorena, you were kind of speaking to that this is one of your goals through filmmaking and also through advocacy. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that question.
Well, when I was first diagnosed with lupus, I didn't know anyone else that was diagnosed with lupus, right? It wasn't until I had gone to a camp. I don't know if they're still around. It's called Camp Sunshine. And they have each week during the summer, like patients and their families go with different, they have different chronic illnesses. And there was a lupus week. And that was like the first time I had ever met other patients with lupus that were my age or, younger. And I just remember that feeling of like, oh my God, I'm not alone. Like, when you're fighting or like going through the midst of, your diagnosis and your first, all the kind of the hard times. And then you realize, oh, there's someone else going through the same thing. Or like, or even for like your family, right? Like even the families were able to bond because they had the same shared experience. So I just remember how powerful that felt and how I wish other people, like I was so shy and I wouldn't say ashamed, but like I didn't really share that I had lupus when I was growing up. It wasn't until I got comfortable in my own skin, with lupus and my identity, that I was able to share. This is who I am fully. And when I did that, I realized, wow, other people, relate or, tell you, thank you for doing this, or like, I also am X, Y, and Z, or I also have lupus. So I think that's why we do what we do, is to like I said, to be that kind of representation that so many other people need in today's world.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. Victoria, how about you? Like, what feels most important for people to know today, kind of given your experience? I think you're muted. It happens. There you
Sorry.
go.
I think what's most important for me is that people can see the ability to live a full life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously, there are moments when lupus does slow me down, and it is inevitable for each and every one of us suffering with it. But at the same point in time, I'd like to make it clear that, you have those lows, but there are also these tremendous highs, like so many opportunities and experiences that I've been able to embark on post diagnosis have really just made me feel whole, never really ashamed. I was always someone who talked about my story first and foremost, like from day one, and I've never hidden it from anyone. And even to a point where, some of my family was like, "Are you sure you should be sharing about this so openly?" And I'm like, "This is what I want to do." I felt a true calling to it. And uh, ever since I started sharing, people have been so responsive and so supportive. And then to that point, too, I've also been able to be a great source of inspiration and motivation. And I think showing the highs versus the lows too just allows people to understand that, they're not alone in that. Yes, they're going to feel low too, but it doesn't mean it's going to be like that forever. But I think a lot of it too is a mindset. Ever since my diagnosis, I've really committed to a mindset of positivity, and I see the light in every situation. So, when I realized I was going to have heart surgery, I turned that traumatic experience, and some people could say maybe negative, I have no idea, but I use it as an opportunity to really learn, grow, and I'm like, this operation is going to save my life and give me a chance to keep going and do more and build more and inspire and motivate others to a whole nother extent. So it's just important that people know it's not an end all be all, but actually an opportunity for a new beginning.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It's like an evolution, like it's growing with you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Canberra, how about you? Like, what feels most important for people to know today based on your journey?
I would say for me, my most important aspect was going through the medicalization process, learning how to advocate for myself, learning what was something that I needed to mention and what wasn't. Like, especially when I first started, there wasn't a lot of people that I knew with lupus either. It ran in my family, so I knew people in my family, but I didn't know anyone my age. I didn't really have anyone to talk to one-on-one about it. So I didn't know what to mention. I didn't know what was a sign of lupus, what wasn't, what was relevant, what wasn't. And I also didn't know how to make doctors listen to me with authority in my tone. I felt like the power dynamic was not in my favor, especially as a teenager. And so I think helping patients walk into those situations with power, because our disease already takes majority of our power away, that's probably the most important thing for me.
I love that so much. Like, it sounds like you took power in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like you took something, like you said, that's taking so much power and energy away from you, and you said, like, no, I need to have some control over this, because there's a lot of things I don't have control over.
Like
Yeah.
I got very, very angry, and I used that angry
Yes.
in a healthy way.
Yep. And anger tells us, that's a cue to give us the energy to do something about it. And that's what it sounds like you really did. That's awesome. Sharon, how about you? Like, what part of your experience feels important for people to know today?
I think one of the most things that are misunderstood in lupus is the severity and how the severity of the disease can vary depending on a patient's lifestyle or if their disease is managed or not. When I was growing up, I was diagnosed when I was 14. There was nobody who knew what lupus was, and nobody knew what the severity was, especially the medications they give us. A lot of people are unaware that sometimes we are given the same medications like methotrexate, which is also given to cancer patients. Obviously, the dosing is a lot different, but I think it's really misunderstood of how severe lupus can be. I mean, the cases range from mild to severe. And unfortunately, I did have a severe case. I have organ involvement. I've had multiple joints replaced. So definitely educating people on what lupus can look like. I mean, a lot of people are able to have a manageable life. I mean, right now, I would say that I am fortunate enough to have that, I'm training to be a healthcare provider. I've went from having 2 hip replacements, needing to use a walker, to zip lining in Hawaii and doing medical mission trips in Mexico. And so I think it's the severity really does vary. And I think that's a really hard concept for people to grasp because they often think that just because you're sick, you might be sick all the time, and they don't understand the fluctuations of the disease. So that's why I make content. That's why I strive to be a healthcare provider, because I want to educate people and spread awareness about that.
I love that. I mean, in all these answers, I hear patterns, in what each of you are saying about identity, what does this mean for yourselves and what that looks like, and also that there's a dynamic nature to it. It's not just black or white. It kind of depends on the day. It depends on where you are in your life, on how you're taking care of your body, the choices that you're making, and like Cambria was talking about, really holding power and authority over your body in a way that doesn't give maybe lupus as much power or control over us in certain ways. Oh, I love that. Thank you. So we're going to kind of open it up to questions I often get in my own practice about dating and romantic relationships. And I know in our support groups, this is something that's often brought up. I know in our panels, these are often the questions that we get asked. So one of my questions is, how do you approach dating in lupus? And when do you choose to disclose your diagnosis? How do you decide that? Sharon, let's just go to you since you were already on camera or already on the screen.
Yeah. So I'm personally very upfront about it because I do share my life pretty publicly, and my diagnosis is literally a whole social media TikTok page, and that's my whole purpose. I am very open with it. So I would tell somebody, the first time I meet them, that these are the limitations that I have. I was diagnosed, but I do manage it pretty well. And just really having an honest conversation about that. And the right person wouldn't get scared off by a diagnosis. They'd want to, help you and be there for you. So I think it's really important to share, especially in the early stages, to see if the person's in it for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Lorena, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, obviously, if it's something serious for me, like just if I'm dating casually, I wouldn't bring it up necessarily unless it had to. But in a serious relationship, I think the last person I dated, I told her within the second month. She was also in the medical field, so she kind of knew and was able to give me advice and whatnot. But it is it is not all of me. It is a part of me. So yes, you have to accept the whole package, and this is what I come with, and this, it was mentioned, these are my limitations. So I think it's very imperative for your partner or person you're in a relationship to know kind of what, so if they can better, also be prepared and be the best help for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cambria, any thoughts?
I would say, oh, did I hit mute?
No, you're good.
Okay. I would say for me, I try and use it as a BS detector. So I'm I fully believe in using my disability to my advantage. So for me, in regards to any type of relationship, friendship, anything, it helps me to know who's going to show up, who's really, really present, who wants to be around me because they want to get to know me and not just because of the fun that I can provide or who I'm around or anything like that, because I can change on any given day. Yesterday, I was in so much pain in bed, curled up crying because it was gloomy outside. Now it's sunny outside. If someone is intrigued by that, if someone says, okay, well, what makes you go through that? And I want to be near you to figure that out, instead of somebody who's like, oh, I can't rely on you. Oh, I can't be around you. It really helps to determine the type of person that person is and what they're ready for, what they're built for, because not everybody's built for what we go through. And that's okay.
I hear that. I hear that. Victoria, any thoughts on your side?
Yeah. So I was in
Love the sigh.
I was in a relationship actually when I was diagnosed, and in the beginning, when I was having all these symptoms and stuff, he was very supportive, very helpful. Finally got my diagnosis. He came and visited me at home like a couple times a week because I stayed with my family at that time. And, I realized though that it was too much for him. It was, he was good in the moment. I guess maybe fight or flight, like I have to be there for her. But once he realized I was on the other side and like starting to improve, he just kind of dipped out casually. So, and had his mother text me. So, I just feel like it really does highlight who a man or woman really is, and like if they're willing to be there to truly support you through the highs and the lows, not just the highs. Um, my last relationship, it was pretty long. He was very supportive. We ended up breaking up too, but once he realized I was going to have heart surgery and stuff, he came to the hospital every single day, and, was like the evening visitor shift, and it was really wonderful. And, we didn't part ways because of lupus. So that was like a person that, really stuck with me through the highs and the lows, which was super important. But now I'm trying to date, and it's very, I don't really talk about the lupus until at least the second date. I don't feel like it's necessarily relevant on the first date. I mean, it's relevant, but I'm like, is this even a person I want to see again? Is it worth me talking about it? And to that point, just like Sharon said, my life is out there. So you can easily Google it and see it and find it. And it's really probably not a surprise once I talk about it. So I think that, it really helps weed out the weak from the strong. And, you only want to be with the strongest in the end, because it does ebb and flow. And you don't want someone who's just here for a good time. You want to be there with someone who's in it for the long haul.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think everybody here mentioned like the importance of kind of weeding out like who is going to be there for you with your authentic self, and that includes good and bad days and the gray in between, and making sure that we're communicating things that are really important to be able to gauge that in someone else, to be able to gauge their reactions and gauge how they show up for you, so that you are making sure that you're in a relationship that meets your needs, which a lot of times for us means support, and honestly should be for any relationship, whether there's lupus or not. So I'm hearing the importance of finding people that can support the authentic you, and lupus is a part of that, but not the whole part of you.
Can we also talk about how lupus affects mostly women? And as women, our value in society is also tied to our bodies.
Sure.
So for the fact that we are sitting here gauging whether or not people are going to stick around, because a lot of our value as women is tied to how we look, how we present ourselves, what our bodies are capable of. And once that is removed, that becomes a big determiner in relationships, both friendships and otherwise.
Mm-hmm. There's so many messages and messaging that's unsaid, but is absolutely relevant to these conversations that we're having and deserves to be challenged, right?
Oh my God. Sorry.
That's okay.
Little baby will not leave me alone.
Oh, hi.
He wants to come talk lupus too.
Does he have any thoughts about lupus and dating? That's really what I want to know.
He said, "Girl, stay away.
Okay, fair, fair.
Mommy, don't play."
Uh-huh. I mean, one thing that you guys all mentioned too was like the the fact that not everyone is going to understand like your symptoms and what you're going through. So what do you do if someone doesn't understand or maybe minimizes those symptoms? And have you guys ever faced that rejection or discomfort after disclosing lupus? And how did you handle that? Anyone have thoughts?
Well,
Victoria?
I realized that some people just literally don't know what lupus is. And
Mhm.
so just taking the time to kind of articulate it as it pertains to me, because obviously it's different for everyone. But I find that, just trying to explain it as best as possible is a really great thing to do. But I think it does make it hard when people have never even heard of it. And, you can just say, it's autoimmune, but that's so vast. It's like,
Mhm.
it's hard to really pinpoint. And so I've had the experience where I actually went out with someone who also had a chronic illness that he was very much ashamed of. Only his mother knew about it and nobody else knew about it. And to the point where he didn't even want to talk about it. He was so uncomfortable. And I just thought it was, I mean, everyone has their own way of handling things. And I'm just so open that it seemed a little bit strange to me. But for him, it was like a huge deal breaker because he's like, oh, you're too open and two people can't be in a relationship who both have chronic illnesses. And, maybe he's right. But at the same point, like, just, I don't know. It's just, sometimes they just don't know. And you have to do your best to educate them, but only so much can be said over a dinner or a couple of casual dates. So.
Totally. Canberra, did I interrupt you before? I feel like you were going to say something.
So your question, can you repeat your question one more time?
Yeah. So the question was like, what do you do if someone doesn't understand lupus and your symptoms and what if they kind of minimize them? Like, have you ever faced rejection or discomfort after
Oh,
disclosing that?
100%. Oh boy. I probably use it more to determine whether or not I'm going to put in that much effort because when I don't understand something, I seek to understand it. So I want that back in return. And so if a person actively is sitting there like, oh no, it's not an issue. Like I had a guy that I dated who would not let me use my disability placard when we were driving. He would not use it. He would not put it up in his car because, oh no, you're fine. You don't need that. Da, 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 da. That didn't last very long because it takes away my experience. It takes away my truth. And it doesn't mean that it defines who I am, but you need to recognize it and it does not reflect on you. There are so many people who view my disability or my illness as a reflection on them or, oh, don't show your cane or, oh, don't take your pills in public. All of these shame things that are supposed to be associated with sickness being something to be embarrassed about. I didn't do this to myself. I have no reason to be embarrassed. This is my lifestyle. This is how I live. And so that I think for me is the biggest thing I focus on.
Yeah. Sharon, what are your thoughts?
I think that lupus is so misunderstood that when it is minimized or, people don't see it for what it is. I mean, it depends on like, is it a friendship or is it a stranger? Like Cranberry was talking, like when you use your disabled placard, there are people who are going to be uncomfortable with it. I mean, there was a time where I was in LA and I went to a cafe and I parked in a disabled spot. I had just gotten like my knees injected, had some treatments done. And so I used my placard as I'm allowed to. And this lady harassed me and was like, you're not disabled, and was threatening to call the cops. And I was like, go for it. At that point, it's like you can try to educate people, you can try to explain yourself, but it's all about if the person's going to be receptive or not. So when it came to a stranger that was chaotic and very obviously triggered, I just let them be because just because I look okay, I'm young. They assume that I'm not disabled because I don't have a cast or I'm not using a cane or a walker. I think a biggest thing that they think that I'm okay is because I'm young. And that's what's really frustrating. So for me, it's like when to know, like, when should I save my energy and when should I advocate for myself? A lot of the time I do advocate for myself, but if it's like a stranger like yelling at me in a disabled spot, I'm just going to let it go. And if they do decide to call authorities, I mean, I have documentation. So it's like, what are they going to do? So I just think it's important to also not let that get to you as a patient because it is very misunderstood. Like the amount of looks that I get for parking in a disabled spot is just, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Lorena, any thoughts from what's been shared so far?
Sorry about that. I would say the only thing that I can do and that I have power over is educating,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just like I would want to be educated, right, on whatever it is, especially if it's like a friend or, a romantic relationship or family member, like educate me. Like I want to know if they're interested, of course. Like educate me. I want to know how I can help you or like what do you need from me? So that's what I do. Because yeah, like a lot of people don't know. I mean, even when I got diagnosed over 15 years ago, like no one knew what lupus was. Now, like maybe you'll find one or two people out of like 20 that have heard of it before. But I think that is, and I just speak for myself, I feel like it's as a lupus patient, my responsibility to educate so more people can know what this disease um entails and maybe some of the symptoms, or again, if we don't look sick but like we feel sick, then we know our bodies more than anything in the world. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I try to share with others.
I like that. What you guys are saying also makes me think about something that I have thought about myself, which is maybe the word understand is a little bit unrealistic. Like, can someone without lupus really understand what we're going through versus can we find people who have empathy and are compassionate and are curious? Like a few of you mentioned, like, I want someone who's asking, or I want to know, I want people to ask me how they can support. I want a partner or someone I'm dating, like, to be curious about what my experience is. So I think that's helped me in my life, is like, people are not necessarily going to understand because they can't. It's not like their fault. They just are not able to. But can they show up with empathy and compassion and curiosity and openness? And those are people that I think can see our authentic selves. Yeah. What would you guys tell someone who might be scared to date because of lupus? Any advice for that?
Can I be honest? It's scary out here in these streets, period.
Uh-huh.
Lupus, no lupus, internet streets, Tinder streets, dating streets. Be scared, period. Like, I don't feel like lupus is some extra reason to be scared. Just dating, period, is scary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
I think that it's also very important just to be safe in general.
Mm-hmm.
I think that especially with lupus, since we do have a higher chance of contracting infections, to always,
Mm-hmm.
be tested and be cautious and be wary. I mean, for me, especially, it's like I will not be intimate with someone unless I know that they've been tested and that they are safe and clean, because I'm not putting my body out there. I'm very like I've gone through a lot, and the last thing I need to go through is another infection that could have totally been prevented. So, I mean, it is scary to date, and with lupus, it does add another layer of fear. But at the end of the day, it's about, what do you want out of life, and like, do you want a partnership? Because anything that's worth, having is going to have a little bit of fear to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that it's totally okay, and just to take things at your own pace.
Yeah. Yeah. Victoria, Lorena, any thoughts on that?
I think Sharon summed it up pretty well. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what, it's a scary place to be. And I think for me, I try to protect my energy quite a bit
Mhm.
because the whole act of getting ready and going out and, it takes time, it takes energy, and then to have to sit there and converse with someone else that you just met,
Mhm.
is also kind of energy depleting at times. And so just knowing when you actively want to be doing this instead of like, kind of forcing yourself to do it because you should. Because, yeah, I don't know. There's just like so many societal norms. And so I go through phases where I'm like, oh, I'm so invested in this. And then other times I'm like, no, I'm taking a break. Like, I just need to be with myself. I need to
Mhm.
prioritize my well being a little bit more. So just finding that balance and, um, yeah, just treading cautiously.
Mhm. I like that. I like that. Lorena, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think everything pretty much has been said. What I would add is like don't deprive yourself from it. Like don't let lupus like stop you from like the beauty of like whatever, like platonic romantic relationship. Because I think I deprived myself so much. Like I came out later in life, so I deprived myself of a lot from like in my teenage years. And it's like you gotta like move on and you can't regret, but like I wish I would have given myself that. So like the way that I see it and like now as an adult, like I like put myself out there and I'm not going to deprive myself any longer from anything, right? Whether lupus or not, no lupus. So my advice would be, yeah, don't deprive yourself, but like tread cautiously and find that balance because I think just like anything, like as lupus patients, we need to find the balance, right? In order to live like a healthy, but also knowing like our limitations, right? And I think that's the only thing I would add to that.
Thank you. Thank you. We're talking about relationships. I mean, family dynamics are also relationships, right? And again, another big group of questions that I often get when moderating these, or even from patients and clients that I'm working with in my practice, a lot of them concern friendships, family shifts, kind of like social loss, isolation. So I'm curious, how has lupus changed your friendships and social life? Like, have you ever outgrown friendships because of lupus? And how did you guys process that? Um, does anyone have thoughts on that? And that's a loaded question.
I would say that like I haven't necessarily outgrown friendships just merely because of lupus, but I would say
Mhm.
because of lifestyles. I
Mhm.
now desire a calm, slow-paced, in bed by 9 p.m. type of lifestyle. And, I would consider myself still in my early 20s. I just turned 25, but, a lot of people my age, want to go out at night or, want to go travel a bunch. And I do love to travel, but I am the type of person where I just prefer a slow life,
Mhm.
and I don't want to be like go, go, go all the time because that flares me up. So it's probably like a misalignment of lifestyles that tends to make me outgrow friendships because I just prioritize having peace at this point. Like I am very tired. So it's just about keeping up and who you want to share your energy with at this
Mhm.
point.
A regulated nervous system is what I'm hearing,
Yes.
and the power of that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any thoughts? Everyone has perfect friendships, perfect social life.
No, she kind of summed it up.
Yeah.
I would say for me, it's also people having in my life understanding that life period has its ups and downs and stresses. So that's
Mhm.
already difficult, and people fall off for different reasons because of that. And
Mhm.
then on top of that, I have to deal with having a disability. So if maybe someone falls off because their grandfather died, I'm going to fall off longer because I'm going to be dealing with a lot more on top of that. And I think having people in my life who recognize, what, my friendship is not based on we have to talk every single day because I can't give
Mhm.
that kind of energy. I can be present, I can be there for you, but I'm not an everyday friend because I can't be an everyday anything for myself half the time.
Victoria,
Yeah.
were you going to say something? Oh, sorry. I know
Yeah,
you
no,
interrupted.
I've definitely outgrown a couple of friendships. To the point, I mean, it's lifestyle, definitely, but also just energy. Some people's aura can be very toxic and draining, and they're always pulling and asking and wanting more, and I'm just not in a phase in my life where I can say yes to everything anymore. And I definitely used to, even after the first few years that I was diagnosed. I was always a yes person, wanted to make everyone happy, would go above and beyond, do backflips. And I realized it's not worth it, because at the end of the day, while, they're content and living their lives, I'm home in bed suffering, and I'm the only one who's going to suffer at this point. And so I've had to create boundaries with a lot of people, to the point where I maybe talk to them once every 6 months, because every time I talk to them, it's just depressing. It's sad. It's negative. It's toxic. And I just consumed so much energy all day, every day, especially in New York as a yoga instructor, that it's so important for me to protect my peace in every capacity possible. So I've had to make that choice to just kind of assert myself, let them know that this is not necessarily working for me anymore, and just put my needs first.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think lupus turns you into a different type of grown-up too. I think having a disability, having a chronic illness, you grow up. You learn how to manage your emotions. You learn how to understand and tap into your body. You have to learn how to deal with the outside world, insurance, pay, all of these things that a lot of people might not even have to deal with into their 40s. So my tolerance for young people is this big because I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have energy, and I don't have the ability to be there for you the way that you need, with the empathy that I should be giving you, because I have a 10, the things that I'm experiencing are a 10 doesn't mean that you're experiencing isn't that. It's just that I'm not there anymore. So I can't be the one to help you through that.
Lorena, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna echo that. Yeah, like having lupus at 13, like definitely matured me at such an early age that I felt like I didn't have really like, I don't know, like those teenage years where you'd like try things, experiences, and go party and all that. So I didn't have any of that. And yeah, I was like dealing with doctors and having these adult conversations that a 13-year-old like should not have, but I was doing it. But to like piggy on like the question, I think it's important for lupus patients to set those boundaries and not feel that they have to compromise, right? Because they want to make their friends happy or their family. Like, you know your limits, like, you know what is healthy for you. And at the end of the day, like, you're the one that's gonna suffer the consequences of whatever that is. So like if you know that, then I think that also helps too, to kind of whittle out whatever energies or social circles like don't work for you anymore, and that's okay.
Yeah. I think too, like, it's okay to grieve. It's okay to grieve friendships or even like romantic relationships or relationships with family that maybe aren't looking the way that you thought they were going to. And allowing us to grieve and allowing ourselves to kind of feel those feelings, like, is also a really important part of processing these changes, these shifts in relationships. And also, some things I'm hearing and what everybody is saying are things that even people without lupus should be doing, right? Like, it's not just, and Sharon, you kind of mentioned this, like, the friendships didn't just end because of lupus or change because of lupus. There's so many other pieces of ourselves that would also impact what a friendship would look like. And so many reasons why we need to protect our energy, but also even for people that don't have lupus, these are lessons that I think maybe we get to learn a little earlier, or maybe you're kind of like forced to learn that I kind of wish other people also got to learn so that they had different perspective in their lives.
Yeah,
So thank you
lupus
all
makes
for
you
sharing
check in with yourself.
that.
A lot of people walk through life never checking in with themselves.
Yeah, insight, right? That we kind of have to have maybe a different level of insight because of our experiences. Yeah,
Or self-awareness, just in
yeah,
general, right? Self-awareness.
absolutely. What advice would you have, kind of given all that? Like, what advice, and some of you mentioned this, would you have for navigating friendships when lupus symptoms are like unpredictable? And I'm thinking like canceled plans, maybe guilt that you couldn't do something that your friends or family, other like systems are able to do.
Can you repeat the first part of the question?
Yeah, of course. Like, what advice do you have for navigating friendships when lupus symptoms are unpredictable? So, like those canceling plans last minute, or like can't do something maybe that someone asked you to, that was a friend or a family member. Like, what advice would you have for someone that might be experiencing that?
Be honest about it from the very, very, very beginning. I
Mhm.
sometimes would wait until the last minute, being like, no, I really want to go. No, I can do this. And then inconvenience my friends even more because I waited
Mhm.
because I was trying so hard when I knew from the very beginning, but wasn't going nowhere.
Mhm. Mhm. Being honest with that. Yeah.
So honest with yourself.
Yep.
Stop
Yep.
trying to negotiate with yourself because there is no negotiation with lupus. It is what it is. Deal with it.
Mhm.
Go.
Mhm.
I would say giving yourself grace,
Yeah.
right? I think that's a lot that, or I've worked on of like giving myself, because I would feel like guilty or like, just
Mhm.
kick myself for not being able to whatever. But I think giving yourself grace and permission to,
Mhm.
not go out and like put yourself first, right? As opposed to putting other people's needs before yours.
Mhm. I hear in that self-compassion, Lorena, like giving yourself permission to be where you are in this moment. And by that permission um, by that permission and acceptance, then being able to make that choice, whether you're going or not, or be able to communicate with friends whether you can do it or not, like that feels better when you're able to be
Absolutely.
compassionate with yourself. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, it's Brianna from Lupus LA here. I'm just chiming in really quick. I think we're about ready for our break time in about 60
Okay.
seconds. So I think unless there's anyone here that wants to wrap up any final questions or Liz, any final thoughts on this particular session, we can dive into our 5-minute break and then come back for navigating the medical system.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to, before our break, just thank you guys already for what you've provided in this first section. And again, I'm really reinforcing like there's so many patterns in what each of you are mentioning around like knowing yourself, being compassionate to yourself, showing up authentically, and not letting things really drain energy when we know our bodies are literally attacking our own selves, and that in of itself takes so much energy. So I think those are some really important lessons for those of us that are attending to take to heart, given that each of you mentioned that those are important things to how you're navigating this diagnosis in our world.
I also wanted to add that one of the things that really helps me is going from the fear of missing out to the joy of missing out when it
Mm.
comes to having to cancel plans, rather than being like, oh, I wish I could go. Like they're looking like they're having so much fun. And I'm like, well, my red blood cells and white blood cells are having a great time inside my body right
Mhm.
now.
Mhm.
So that's something that I just wanted to share in terms of like
Yeah,
mindset.
I like that too.
Also communicating with your friends about,
Mhm.
what is most important for them. Like, okay, if you could pick 3 things that I absolutely show up for you for, let me know what
Mhm.
those are so I can prioritize those above everything else. So
Yeah.
that takes some of the weight off of me a little bit.
Mhm. And they know the context.
Mhm.
Yeah, totally. All
I
right.
always remind myself that there's always going to be another opportunity. It's like this is not the
Mhm.
last event on the planet, there's
Mhm.
always more. And so I actually have zero guilt when I ask them
Yeah,
if I don't
I
know.
love that. And by taking care of ourselves, we might be able to better show up for those other opportunities too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Love my
Excellent.
bed too much.
Uh-huh.
Very, very, very hard to pull me out. Very hard.
Cool. Well, Brianna, do we want to take a quick break?
Yeah, let's take a break right now for about like 5 minutes or so. We can hop back on maybe right at 3. So for everyone that's with us, we're going to take a quick break. We'll hop right back on at 3 and go into our next session.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I'm just going to pop this up here. All right. Think we're just about ready to dive back in to our panel for session 2 around lupus and the healthcare system, navigating access, appointments, and self-advocacy. So I think we're all back and ready to go. Liz, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Yeah, it's really good to see everybody back. This portion of our panel is probably what I get asked the most often, kind of aside from dating, but it's really around like, how do we navigate the medical system, which we know is kind of a monster system, right? Like we can all acknowledge that, with a lot of moving parts. So I wanted to talk a little bit with you guys today around how to navigate this and what this has been like. And my first question is maybe a little rhetorical, but have you ever experienced medical gaslighting? And if so, how did you recover after being dismissed? And when I'm talking about gaslighting, I know that's something, that word has been kind of thrown around everywhere, like on TikTok and Instagram, like on social media has kind of taken over the word gaslighting. But what I'm referring to when I'm talking about gaslighting is when someone else is essentially saying that what you're experiencing is like your fault. That it's actually, instead of you kind of addressing something with a doctor to get answers, they're pushing it back on you. For example, like, you know, and I certainly have this experience where you're told it's anxiety or it's like just in your head. So yeah, I'm wondering if any of you have experienced that gaslighting and how you handled it. Cambria? You're muted.
Oh,
there we go.
Being a plus size woman, that's all you experience. It's, oh, well, if you just go work out, oh, you know, weight loss will help everything. Oh, that I'm sure you don't need that medication. You just need to lose a few pounds. I was 150 pounds when I first got diagnosed. I am closer to 250 now. My pain has been the same, 150, 250. Being an MMA fighter, doing, like, it doesn't matter. Lupus does not care. But doctors apparently do.
Totally. I wonder too if a lot of that's from their own discomfort.
100%. And them not being able to pinpoint a physiological thing to say, oh, this is exactly what's wrong. So it was easier to just put it on, oh, well, you must just be fat.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I would like to add to that. So actually, like, completing like my first semester of graduate school, learning how to be a healthcare provider, it's unfortunate because the way that they teach us when it comes to patients who are overweight, that's like one of the things they teach you to implement into your treatment plan, which I thought was like not okay. Like, why are we resorting to that first, not listening to the patient's concerns? But it's a huge flaw in the medical education system. I mean, you know, there are some things like the amount of times where I've learned in just like the ENT module I had of like, just for inflammation, they throw out prednisone like crazy. And for somebody who had 2 bilateral hip replacements and who had knee surgery from prednisone, that would not be my first choice of drug to give to someone, you know, who's just having like mild nose irritation, but they just want the inflammation down because of the serious side effects, because I personally am traumatized. So I think that this also has to do with the flaw in our healthcare system in America.
And not thinking about the fact that the medications that they are prescribing, like for me, when I first got this prescribed Lyrica for fibromyalgia, it made me gain 50 pounds in 2 months. And it was right there on the label that, oh, this will cause weight gain. But my male doctor didn't think to tell my 19-year-old self that this would be my life and that it was going to drastically change my metabolism. It was going to make it so that losing weight was extremely difficult and change my body. But to him, that wasn't even a factor. But then once my body changed because of medicine, I got blamed for it. And it actually was used against me to make it so that they wouldn't give me medication later on. So it's about learning how the system sees you, and then 2, being able to undermine that with actual facts and speak for yourself.
Yeah. One thing, being a social worker in two large health systems, was sharing, kind of to your point, like a lot of our certain medical professions would come in with that, like it's anxiety or it's weight, like it's anything but trying to rule out medical things that are going on.
You're a woman, it's just cramps.
Uh-huh.
It's just endometriosis, you'll be fine.
Yeah. And like from my training as a social worker, we were always taught, and it was part of our licensure exam, you do a medical ruling out of anything first.
Yep.
So it was just interesting. And Sharon, you spoke about this, of like, there's kind of some flaws in teaching that then of course get implemented in a bigger system. And there's also people that maybe are a little bit lower on the totem pole, like a social worker in these teams, saying, hey, we need to rule out medical first. Because trying to address anxiety when there's a very acute stress that's going on, a really significant stressor that's going on, just doesn't really make sense.
Xanax doesn't fix everything.
Has anyone else had this experience before?
Mine's been a little bit different. It's more like it's all in your head. My body is, I mean, all of our bodies are very sensitive, but I'm always kind of like 5 steps ahead of any flare up. I can just tell immediately when something is starting to brew, and that, there needs to be some sort of intervention. And so many times I've seen my doctors and they're like, everything looks fine. They'll do like the little, ankle squeeze test. And I'm like, no, I can tell like something is changing, something is happening, and just kind of forcing them to take it seriously instead of just sending me home saying, you'll be fine. Because a lot of times I can tell within my body before the labs even indicate anything. And then, a couple of weeks later, they're like, oh my God, your labs are insane. I'm like, yeah, I was trying to tell you for weeks that something was off and you didn't listen to me.
Yeah.
And to Sharon's point too about the steroids, like, that they use that, they give it out like candy and don't really talk about the repercussions of steroids. I never in a million years thought that, I'd be getting hip replacement. And I now know that it's like very common among lupus patients. And for years, I've been asking my rheumatologist to get me off the steroids. And only after I got the diagnosis of avascular necrosis did she then place me on Benlysta. And I'm like, too little, too late. I'm already having this surgery. What happened 5 years ago when I asked you to take me off of it? And she's just like, soft smile, giggle. And I'm like, no, it's really not that funny because this affects my life, my livelihood.
Sure.
So very frustrating sometimes.
It's beyond frustrating. Right? Lorena, did you have anything to add?
So my experience has been way different, and I feel very grateful. So I've only had two rheumatologists my whole life, one in New York and the one that I see here at UCLA. I've had other doctors, but those were the two. And I think my doctor in New York, again at 13, I think she set the bar as to like expectations. And I think all the doctors now that see me know that they can bullshit. Like I will ask questions and I want answers. Like if you don't have an answer, like find an answer, right? Like I think my first doctor, Dr. Munda, set the bar so high, and I feel very grateful and appreciative of her and everyone who's, seen me. But I think her seeing me and like listening, and even as a teenager back then, of like, okay, this hurts you, let's address this, let's keep an eye out. So I feel very fortunate that I never had that experience with any of the doctors that I've ever seen. I think, not that I think, I know that they've always listened. Even my rheumatologist today, we are a team, and I think that mentality has they have graciously accepted how involved and how like the expectations that I expect from them, and to really get to the root of whatever it is that's going on. So I feel very fortunate to have had those experiences where, you know, they've listened, they've been nothing but like, you know, a soundboard, and we've worked together, and I've never felt like they kind of didn't hear me, or you thought that I was making it up. So I feel very fortunate. And but I can see how frustrating it is, you know, hearing Sharon and Cambria and Victoria's experiences, because yeah, I mean, we like we've said, it's been like a theme of like, we know our bodies more than any healthcare provider, right? So listen to your lupus patients.
Yeah. I think too, even if we, like, I have an incredible, have had the same experience as Lorena, like I had an incredible pediatric rheumatologist and really set the bar for my adult rheumatologist. And even though my adult rheumatologist is, I call her like my queen, also at UCLA. And even though she is, you know, we are a team, and she's an amazing advocate, it also has shown me that I'm not going to put up with stuff from other specialties, because there's so many other people involved in our care, right? So having somebody that you're not only a team with, but is kind of setting the bar relatively high for other providers, and hopefully also helping with some advocacy, I think is so important, and is a privilege, really, that not
Super
everybody
important.
has.
Yeah. Shout out Dr. Grossman.
Oh, that's mine too, queen. Queen.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to add, I also have a UCLA rheumatologist. She's like one of my biggest advocate, and I love her so much. But to add what Liz was saying about how you're not going to put up with, you know, other specialties like gaslighting or, you know, minimizing your disease, I think that's like a huge problem that we have in our system.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, if you have a wonderful rheumatologist, like that's amazing. But when you go to other specialties who may not be aware, they just place everything, the blame on, it's back to your autoimmune. It's back to
Right.
your autoimmune. I was seeing this orthopedic surgeon when I was having pain for my AVN, and I had known it had progressed. But she refused to take a look at my scan, saw me for 10 minutes, told me it was muscle pain. So I took my care elsewhere to my surgeon who did do my hip replacements, who found that it wasn't just stage 1 of vascular necrosis, it
Right.
progressed to stage 3. And for people
Right.
who don't know, a vascular necrosis has 4 stages. Stage 4 is when the bone collapses. So since this was in my hips, I was at stage 3, about to collapse. So I'm very grateful that I advocated for myself, and I did see a different surgeon. I went to USC, and I absolutely loved my surgeon. He really took me seriously and took time to break down my case and wasn't afraid of operating on me. And I think that there's a lot of surgeons out there who, you know, may be, you know, a bit afraid of the complexity of our disease, because it can, you know, affect outcomes. But,
Sure.
you know, finding the right surgeon, the right healthcare team that's willing to work with you is so, so important.
And I think the same is true for any other specialty, right? Often they're not as educated on lupus or the diagnoses
Pain
that
management.
pain
Pain
management, for
management is
sure.
the worst. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I'm sure there are other people, you know, on this webinar that are like, same, Cambria. I can guarantee you.
No.
Kind of in line with that, many of you were talking about, like, you know, things around like, you know, what makes a good doctor, what makes, you know, a challenging doctor. What helps you guys decide if someone is a good doctor and therefore maybe a good fit for you? What are the things that you're looking out for?
Do they know my chart? Did they read the chart? When they came in, are they repeating and asking me all the same things that the nurse just asked me? When you come in, are you standing over me and taking a power position, or are you bringing yourself to where I am? Are you meeting me on a human level? I want someone who sees me. I've had doctors come in and not even look me in the eye. So I need someone that I can build a rapport with and a relationship with. And a lot of doctors don't know how to do that. A lot of doctors have this clinical thing where they're like, I don't connect to people. You are a chart, you are a number, you are a disease, and that's all I can see. And so finding people who see me and relate, even if it's just one little part of their life, that helps a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other thoughts?
I think a big thing is being heard, like Cambria said. I think really making sure that somebody is actually listening to what I'm saying and not just defaulting to what's the easiest way I can blame her symptom on this.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that is, a lot, it's a flaw in our medical system, unfortunately. We are burnt out. I see it from both sides. We are burnt out, but at the same time, this is why we create more access to care. It's so that we don't have that burden on the healthcare providers. But I think what makes a great provider is somebody who has true empathy and is willing to dig deeper than just blaming it on a surface level diagnosis of like anxiety, or maybe this just ties back to her lupus. Like, there have been many things that I have gone through that a lot of providers just didn't know what it was. And it just took one person to really sit down and just critically think deeply over a long period of time to figure out what was actually wrong with me. So doing the research and listening to your patient is very, very important.
Yeah. And we were talking in the dating and relationship section about kind of what makes a good relationship, right? Like what makes a strong relationship where someone, where like you feel heard and you can be authentic. And I think the same is true for finding a medical team. Like, do they have some of the same characteristics that we would value in any kind of relationship? Because this might be one of the most kind of life or death relationships that you have. And what would we want in someone? Like for me, I look for someone that asks me as many questions as I'm asking them. That they're showing curiosity, that they're showing openness. Again, similar to what we were talking about with dating and other relationships.
Someone without an ego. I don't want a doctor with an ego, because that means you don't hear me. You don't understand that what I'm telling you actually matters. All you hear is your own thoughts. So
yeah. I'm wondering if you guys have any like scripts or phrases that do help you communicate your needs in an appointment. Lorena?
I just want to add to the previous. So I
Sure.
think what's important, empathy, of course, and like, are you rushing me? Like, are you, because I've been to some doctors that it's like, okay, this, okay, thank you so much. It's like, no, you're gonna like take your time. We're gonna have a conversation. And I think that it's something that both my rheumatologists were like really good at, of like really just like being patient, asking the questions, answering the questions, and really is there like an effort on their end, right? Because at the end, like you said, like we're a team, right? We're both battling this disease together, and are you putting in like your work, and so I think that's important for me.
Sometimes that also means a physician that's willing to kind of go up against the medical system, because I think a lot of times like time with patients is not really something that is super managed by them. Like there's often the medical system's kind of constraints too, but I've noticed that both of my rheumatologists have really done an amazing job at kind of like fighting back against that. And I acknowledge that that's also really challenging.
I just wanted to add to that, because training to be a healthcare provider, in my first semester, they did cap us to 15 minutes to get a full history, do a physical exam, and you could not go over that. And they train a lot of, NPs and PAs to be primary care, because that's where we're lacking. So it might differ in specialty care. Like you may have like a longer schedule. Like I used to work at the Children's Hospital in Orange County, and the nurse practitioners would be able to see 8 patients in one day, but then the MDs would see 70.
Yes.
And so it would be like a large difference of like how much time is really being spent. But then it's also like the caps of the insurance, companies. And so it all plays down to, how to navigate the system. And that's why a lot of people do go into private practice, and I can see why, but then it costs patients more.
Of course.
So it's just like a huge flaw in our healthcare system.
I wonder too if that's a question that maybe is something you guys ask, like, in a new patient appointment. It's like, how long are your appointments? Because often a first appointment is a little bit differently scheduled, and then maybe you'll have maybe more time for the new patient appointment and less time in follow-up. But I'm wondering if that's something that you guys ask as part of the initial process.
Working on the other side of healthcare, it actually, it's like some patients who are more complex, we do book longer spots
Yes.
for them.
Mhm.
So I think that it depends on, the place that you're getting care and like the
Yeah.
provider's abilities. Like I know for me, my rheumatologist books out an hour just for me,
Mhm.
which is amazing. But sometimes she runs behind. But yeah, I mean, it completely depends on the system
Absolutely.
and the abilities of the provider.
Mhm.
And your communication, I think, with your doctor. I think for me, like with Dr. Grossman, we talk in advance about what I want to come in and see or what she needs to get done so we can allot the time that we need.
Yes. I love that. Victoria, do you have any thoughts?
I had a thought about the previous question, just like as far as what you look for in a doctor. I mean, bedside manner for sure is like number one for me because I'm like very sensitive. And so I need someone who's going to, as everyone said, be empathetic and really listen to me, but also someone who, is going to think a couple of steps ahead if possible. Because when I had my heart surgery, it was thanks to my kidney doctor that he basically saved my life, I say, because he wanted to get to the root cause of the issue. He's like, this is so unusual for you. And like, they pumped me full of meds and I got back to my normal level. But, he was like, something is probably a little bit deeply rooted in why this even happened to begin with. And so I got a full body CAT scan. And then that's how they realized, I had a tear in my ascending aorta. So, if it weren't for him and just like taking the time to really put in the energy and the effort to just kind of think a little bit further outside the box besides here's more medication to make you feel better.
Like what I hear in that, Victoria, is the root cause piece of like, can you not just, shell out medication, like without really doing an assessment around what's going on? And that often entails thinking about a person as a system, a whole person with a lot of moving parts, where if you band-aid one part, it's not really addressing the rest of the system. And a good doctor is able to think about things, in my opinion, like as a system and see us for the whole people that we are. Exactly. One of the kind of last questions I have is what do you do? And I've certainly felt this way and hear this so much from patients and my friends and community is like, what do you do when you feel too exhausted to advocate for yourself? I know this is like super heavy because I'm sure a lot of us have experienced this and a lot of people that are watching right now have experienced this, but I'm just wondering, even if there's no answer, like what some of your experiences are around that.
Teaching the people that I love to advocate for me and how.
Yeah.
What's the best way, when to notice when I'm not kind of reaching the level that I normally reach. I think that helps me a lot. Even asking for people to come to doctor's appointments with me, which I don't like doing that, but when I just don't have it in me, it helps tremendously.
Support.
Writing notes, recording. If I can ask my doctor, can I record this so that I can listen to it later? Because my fog is crazy right now.
Yeah. I love that. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think familial support is a big one. I live with my brother, and so he kind of knows like right away if like something's off or if I've been in bed for a good portion of the day. He's like, Toria, are you okay? Like, can I get you anything? And so just knowing that he's there, I think makes a really big difference because left to my own devices, I will just lay there for the entire day. And, my parents are close by and they'll drop anything to come be by my side if I ask them to. But, I also don't want to feel like a burden, even though I know that I'm not. But it's just nice having someone very close by that can do that for me. Because sometimes, getting on the phone, I've spent so much time on the phone recently, like getting everything organized for this hip replacement. And it's just exhausting. I have to dedicate like an entire day to just doctor's phone calls, the wait time. And then when you get on the phone with someone, they don't really have any answers. So like, oh, can I take a message? I'm like, no, I need to talk to someone now. Like, this is ridiculous. So yeah, family is key.
Totally. Sharon or
Yeah.
Whitney? Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna echo and say, yeah, having a great support system always helps. I'm very grateful to my mom and my brother. Like they've been extraordinary, and I think they can sense now when like I'm not feeling so well, or I'll try to vocalize it. But I think, having a support system that kind of knows like the ebbs and flows is really helpful for us lupus patients.
Mhm. Yeah. Sharon, any thoughts?
Yeah, so just to sum all that up, I think in general, having friends, family, a great support system is really what's going to help you when you can't advocate for yourself.
Mhm.
And educating your people to know the signs and the symptoms. Like for me, like I know when I'm about to get a flare, I get very, very silent. So it's like if
Mhm.
I'm in a car with like my friends and all of a sudden I just go really silent, they're like, oh, she's
Yeah.
flaring. And so they know the signs and then they will adjust to help me and be like, okay, like, let's get her water, let's get her a blanket. Do you need heat for the Raynaud's? Like, so it's like being able to have people who understand you to
Mhm.
advocate for you. And like, especially at appointments, having someone on the phone is really important too if you can't gather up your thoughts. And also just
Mhm.
I like to keep like on my notes app just like the objectives and things that I need. So like if I do run into a problem or like I get brain fog, I can reference that back and be like, no, like I need this ultrasound. Like I'm gonna like try my best and just at least vocalize it. And also to note, like, if a provider doesn't want to get a test done, to ask why.
Mhm.
At the bare minimum, we should know, I want to be explained why is this not necessary if I'm experiencing these things.
And
Also
make
to have it be put in the chart.
yes.
Yeah, is that what you're saying, Cameron? Sorry. Yeah.
You
That
put a
if you ask for a test and they're not giving it to you, can you document that in my chart?
And I'm also bringing it up to my insurance because why are we doing this? Why am I paying you if you're not doing what I need you to do?
Mhm. Mhm. I think from working in healthcare, I worked in oncology at UCLA, and many of the providers that I worked with understood that people learn differently and have different capacities. So there might be someone coming in with a recorder, and I know that there's been some hesitations, but I think a lot more doctors are open to that, knowing that we have a lot of neurodivergent folks too that learn in different ways, take in information in different ways, people with various capacities due to their health status. So asking if you can record, and if not, making sure they're okay with taking their time in explaining things and giving you time to write it in your phone or whatever it is. That also identifying a champion, even if you don't have this huge system of support, because not everybody does, can you identify one person that's kind of your champion that can identify, when you're silent, that you're going to have a flare, or maybe when you're needing support around making calls, can they make all the calls that are not related to maybe medical calls that you need to be on? Victoria, I'm thinking of like your situation. And even finding one person that you can throw ideas off of can make all the difference in the world. And even like maybe going to a support group might be helpful in like identifying how other people advocate for themselves, like getting tips and tricks around how they take in information from their appointments or how they manage calls, how they manage other things, like talking to other patients. I think we all feel like we get so many more creative like thoughts and creative tips to also be able to better manage this for ourselves. And this is a wonderful opportunity that mirrors, being able to engage with other people that experience exactly what we're all experiencing every day, even if it's not the exact details of maybe what another person is experiencing. There's still so many tones. I use this example all the time, is like if I tell another lupus patient that I'm tired, they know exactly what that tired means. They know exactly what some of the language that we're using means. So I think what I'm taking from this webinar is there were so many things that were different in what you guys were sharing, but also so many similarities. And so can we find some of those similarities to help us feel heard and seen within our community, and therefore more empowered to be able to engage with our providers, engage with people we love, engage with strangers, acquaintances, that this all really helps. And it's kind of just a cycle of community, a circle of community that's helping us all live the best that we can with lupus. So I just want to thank all of you guys so much for sharing your story, for sharing incredible tips and tricks for our community, and really encourage those that are watching to reach out either to our panel or Lupus LA, follow on socials, to really be able to engage more and hear people's stories and the things that they've learned from it. Going back to kind of some of the first questions that I was asking, like, what would you tell people? And maybe in like a few words, kind of on an ending note, like, what would you tell a new patient? Anybody?
Just in general about lupus and the journey and starting.
Yeah, something short and sweet that you'd want to end on.
It does not define you.
Okay, I like it. Anybody else?
I'd probably say to stay interested in the journey and the work.
I like that. I like that. Sharon or Lorena?
I would say that there's going to be periods of stability and instability, but to be grounded throughout the process and to trust.
I like that.
You will feel better on some days.
Yeah. Lorena?
I would say to be present and that it gets better.
I love that. And mine is to stay curious and stay open. Thank you guys so much. And I so appreciate you guys sharing your journeys. And